Have you ever sat down with every intention to get things done, an assignment, a project, maybe even just cleaning your room, and then suddenly found yourself scrolling endlessly, lost in YouTube, Instagram, or TikTok? Hours gone, guilt settling in, and still the task remains untouched? If yes, then you're not alone. In fact, you're experiencing one of the most common and most dangerous psychological traps: procrastination. And trust me, this is not just laziness. There's something far deeper, far darker, and far more fascinating happening in your brain. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something. Where in the world are you watching this from? And what time is it right now? Are you procrastinating late at night when you should be sleeping? Or during the day when you should be working? Let me know in the comments below, because you'll be surprised how many people around the world are fighting this same battle. Also, if you've ever found yourself stuck in the cycle of procrastination and you want to break free, make sure to like this video, share it with someone you know who always delays things, and subscribe to this channel right now. Because in this series, we're going to break down the exact science of why you procrastinate, and more importantly, how to stop it for good. Now, let's begin. Picture this. You're sitting at your desk. There's an important deadline coming up. Maybe it's a school essay. Maybe it's a big work report. Or maybe just a personal goal, like finally going to the gym. You open your laptop, ready to start. The cursor blinks on the empty document. You stare at it. 10 seconds pass. 30. A minute. Suddenly, your brain whispers, "Maybe I should check my messages real quick." Just for a second. You open your phone, a notification leads to another. One YouTube video turns into 10. And before you know it, hours have vanished. The task is still untouched. You feel bad. You promise yourself you'll start tomorrow. But tomorrow arrives, and the cycle repeats. That moment, when you choose temporary comfort over long-term reward, that is the core of procrastination. And believe it or not, your brain is hardwired to push you in that direction. This isn't laziness. This isn't weakness. This is psychology in action. Inside your brain, there are two key players battling for control: the limbic system and the prefrontal cortex. The limbic system is the ancient primal part of your brain. It's responsible for pleasure, fear, and survival instincts. It wants immediate gratification, that quick dopamine hit from social media, the comfort of lying in bed, or the temporary relief of, "I'll do it later." On the other side, you have the prefrontal cortex, your rational, planning, decision-making brain. It's the part that knows deadlines matter, that goals require effort, and that hard work pays off. Here's the problem. The prefrontal cortex is weaker. It has to fight against the powerful emotional urges of the limbic system. That's why, in that crucial moment when you should begin working, your brain almost always leans toward immediate comfort instead of long-term benefit. Procrastination, in essence, is your limbic system hijacking your brain. But here's something even more sinister. Procrastination often hides fear. Fear of failure, fear of imperfection, fear of not being good enough. Think about it. If you start that essay and it's not good, you'll feel inadequate. If you delay, at least you can tell yourself, "I could have done better, but I just didn't have time." In other words, procrastination is a shield, a psychological defense mechanism that protects your ego. So the delay isn't just about laziness. It's about avoiding discomfort and fear. Your brain convinces you that not starting is safer than starting and potentially failing. Let me tell you a story. In the 1950s, a Canadian student named John Perry had everything going for him. Brilliant, hardworking, but also a classic procrastinator. One semester, he delayed his assignments until the very last minute. What started as simple late submissions escalated into him failing courses, losing opportunities, and eventually dropping out altogether. Years later, he confessed that procrastination wasn't just a bad habit. It was the silent thief that stole his future. Now, imagine this. How many dreams today are left unrealized? Not because people weren't smart enough, not because they weren't capable enough, but because they kept saying, "I'll do it tomorrow." Here's the dangerous part. Procrastination feels good in the moment. When you avoid a difficult task and choose Netflix, TikTok, or a quick snack, your brain rewards you with dopamine. That's why procrastination is addictive. It's literally reinforcing itself. Each time you delay, your brain says, "See? That felt better. Let's do it again." This creates what psychologists call a reward loop. The more you procrastinate, the more your brain learns to prefer it. Over time, this loop becomes stronger and stronger, until even small tasks feel overwhelming. But here's the catch. While procrastination feels good short-term, it destroys you long-term. It kills productivity. It damages self-esteem because you constantly feel guilty. It increases stress and anxiety as deadlines loom closer. And worst of all, it creates a life of regrets, dreams delayed until it's too late. Psychologists often call procrastination the silent killer of success. And the scariest part? Most people don't even realize how much it controls them until years have slipped away. So now you know, procrastination isn't just you being lazy. It's your limbic system overpowering your prefrontal cortex. It's your fear of failure disguised as delay. And it's a dopamine-driven addiction that rewards you for sabotaging yourself. But here's the good news. Procrastination can be beaten. There are psychological hacks, proven strategies, and mindset shifts that can rewire your brain and free you from this cycle. Now, we're going to uncover those exact strategies, how to trick your brain, how to outsmart your limbic system, and how to finally stop procrastination from controlling your life. Stay tuned, because what comes next might just change the way you work forever. Procrastination isn't laziness. It's your brain's survival system hijacking you. Your limbic system craves comfort and quick dopamine, while your prefrontal cortex struggles to keep you on track. And in that battle, delay almost always wins. But now that you know the enemy, the question is, how do you fight back? How do you rewire your brain so you can stop sabotaging yourself and finally take control of your time, your goals, and your future? Today, we're diving into the proven psychology of breaking procrastination, powerful techniques that work with your brain instead of against it. Let's start with one of the simplest but most effective tools, the 5-second rule, made famous by Mel Robbins. Here's how it works. The moment you feel the urge to procrastinate, like when you're about to scroll your phone instead of working, you count down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you move. You physically start the task before your brain talks you out of it. Why does this work? Because procrastination thrives in hesitation. The longer you think, the louder the limbic system becomes. But by acting within 5 seconds, you activate the prefrontal cortex and override the emotional pull. This tiny brain hack has saved countless people from the endless spiral of "I tutti tius, I tutti tidanti til, or do it later." Now, let's talk about another classic, the 2-minute rule. When a task feels too big, your brain resists. So instead of telling yourself, "I need to finish this whole report," you tell yourself, "I'll just work for 2 minutes." Open the laptop, write a sentence, read 1 page. Here's the magic. Once you start, momentum takes over. Psychologists call this the Zeigarnik effect. Your brain hates unfinished tasks. So once you begin, It actually pushes you to keep going. Think of it like pushing a heavy car. The hardest part is the first push, but once it's rolling, it gets easier. But let's be honest, sometimes willpower alone isn't enough. That's where environmental design comes in. Your environment shapes your behavior more than you think. If your phone is next to you, you will check it. If YouTube is open in another tab, you will click it. So here's the hack. Make procrastination hard and productivity easy. Put your phone in another room while working. Use website blockers like Cold Turkey or Freedom to shut down distractions. Keep your workspace clean and only for work. Think of your environment as a silent partner. Either it works for you or against you. Remember we said procrastination is often about fear and avoidance? That means to break it, you must rewire how you emotionally connect to the task. Instead of asking, "How do I make this less painful?" Ask, "How do I make this exciting?" For example, turn your work into a game. Use timers, rewards, or challenges. Pair boring tasks with pleasure, like listening to music while cleaning. Reframe the task as an opportunity instead of a burden. I get to do this, instead of I have to do this. By attaching positive emotions, you trick your brain into chasing the task instead of running from it. Here's another powerful psychological hack. Deadlines. Think about it. How many times have you pulled off an essay, project, or assignment at the last possible moment under crushing pressure? That's because stress activates adrenaline, forcing the brain into laser focus. But waiting until the real deadline is risky. So instead, create artificial deadlines. Tell a friend you'll send them your draft by tonight. Use apps where you risk losing money if you don't finish. Break tasks into mini deadlines so you feel urgency every day instead of just at the end. When you shorten the feedback loop, procrastination doesn't stand a chance. Let's go back in history for a moment. The famous French writer Victor Hugo, the genius behind Les Miserables, was one of the worst procrastinators of all time. In 1830, he had a huge deadline for a new book, but he kept wasting time with parties and distractions. Finally, desperate to finish, he locked away all his clothes and left himself with nothing but a huge shawl. Why? Because that way, he couldn't leave the house. He literally forced himself into productivity by removing temptation. And guess what? It worked. He finished the book on time. Sometimes, like Hugo, you have to make procrastination impossible. One of the most powerful psychological tricks is connecting with your future self. See, procrastination happens because the brain values present comfort over future gain. But if you can visualize your future self, realize that future you is actually you, suddenly, delaying feels like betrayal. Here's a simple exercise. Before you procrastinate, ask, what will future me feel if I don't do this today? Imagine that guilt, that stress, that regret. Now ask, what will future me feel if I do it right now? Imagine the relief, the pride, the freedom. By vividly imagining outcomes, you tilt the scales in favor of action. But here's where things get really deep. True change doesn't happen from hacks alone. It comes from identity. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, explains, "We don't act because of what we want. We act because of who we believe we are." If you see yourself as someone who always procrastinates, guess what? You'll keep doing it. If instead you say, "I am the kind of person who takes action immediately," your behavior starts aligning with that identity. So instead of focusing on finishing tasks, focus on becoming the person who doesn't delay. So far, we've uncovered some of the most powerful hacks to break procrastination. The 5-second rule, the 2-minute trick, environmental design, emotional reframing, artificial deadlines, future self-visualization, and identity shifts. These tools are powerful. They can change the way you work. But here's the truth. Tools alone aren't enough, because procrastination isn't just about time management. It's about life management. It's about the stories you tell yourself, the beliefs you carry, and the fears you haven't faced. Now, we're going even deeper to uncover the psychological roots of procrastination, the hidden self-sabotage that keeps you stuck, and the ultimate strategy to break free forever. If you thought procrastination was just about laziness, what comes next will blow your mind. So far, we've pulled back the curtain on procrastination. We expose the hidden battle inside your brain, the limbic system hijacking your focus while the prefrontal cortex struggles to keep you disciplined. We armed you with hacks and strategies, like the 5-second rule, the 2-minute trick, and identity shifts that can break the cycle of delay. But here's the truth. Procrastination isn't just about tricks and tools. It goes deeper, much deeper. Procrastination is a mirror. It reflects your fears, your beliefs, and sometimes even your unresolved past. To truly break free, you have to look at the darkest corners of your psychology. And that's what we're about to do. Let's begin with one of the most dangerous roots of procrastination: perfectionism. Think about it. How many times have you delayed starting a project because you wanted it to be perfect? How often have you told yourself, "I'll start when I feel ready," or "I just need to plan more before I begin"? This illusion of perfection is a trap. It convinces you that waiting is progress, when in reality, waiting is just another form of fear. Psychologists call this analysis paralysis. The brain gets so stuck on creating the perfect plan that it never actually takes action. But here's the truth: perfection never comes. The most successful people aren't the ones who waited for the perfect moment. They're the ones who started messy, failed often, and improved along the way. Perfectionism isn't a standard of excellence. It's a form of procrastination. Now, here is something most people don't realize. Procrastination doesn't always come from the fear of failing. Sometimes it comes from the fear of succeeding. Yes, you heard that right. Some people delay because they're terrified of what will happen if they actually achieve their goals. Will expectations get higher? Will they lose friends? Will they be able to handle the new version of themselves? This hidden fear is subtle but powerful. It whispers, if you don't try, you can stay safe. And safety, for the brain, always feels easier than change. So procrastination becomes a way of protecting yourself from both failure and success. Here's where things get even deeper. Many psychologists believe procrastination is tied to childhood experiences. Imagine a child who grows up with harsh criticism. Every mistake is punished, every failure mocked. That child learns to fear starting, because starting leads to judgment. Fast forward to adulthood, and what happens? That child, now grown, delays tasks, not because they can't do them, but because deep down, they're terrified of repeating that pain. On the flip side, a child who was shielded too much, never allowed to struggle, might also grow into an adult who procrastinates because the discomfort of effort feels unbearable. In both cases, procrastination isn't about the task. It's about unhealed wounds. Here's the paradox. Procrastinators often know exactly what they're doing. They know the deadline is coming. They know the stress will get worse. And yet, they still delay? Why? Because of what's called the self-sabotage loop. On a subconscious level, some people use procrastination as a way to explain away failure. If you fail after giving your best, it hurts. But if you fail because you ran out of time, your ego is safe. It's twisted logic, but it's real. And breaking that loop means facing the fear of failing even when you try. So, how do you escape procrastination at its deepest level? Not just with hacks, but with transformation. Here are the 3 ultimate shifts. Radical acceptance. Admit that procrastination is not laziness. It's fear, perfectionism, and avoidance. When you name it, you weaken it. Radical imperfection. Force yourself to take messy action. Write the ugly draft. Record the bad video. Submit the imperfect report. Action beats perfection every time. Radical ownership. Stop blaming time, circumstances, or motivation. Own your choices. Every delay is a decision, and every decision shapes your future. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. It's 1 year from now. There are two versions of you. First, you kept procrastinating. You kept waiting for the perfect moment, kept distracting yourself, kept telling yourself, tomorrow. A year has passed, and nothing has changed. You feel heavier, more guilty, more stuck. Second, you broke the cycle. You started small, but you kept going. You faced discomfort. You pushed through fear. You delivered, even when it wasn't perfect. And because of that, your life transformed. New habits, new confidence, new results. Which version will you be? The answer depends on what you do right now. Bronnie Ware, a nurse who cared for dying patients, once wrote a book about the top regrets of the dying. Do you know what the most common regret was? It wasn't about money. It wasn't about fame. It was this: I wish I had lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. And do you know what steals that kind of life more than anything else? Procrastination. The endless delaying of your dreams until time runs out. The harsh truth is this: procrastination isn't just costing you tasks, it's costing you your life. So now you know. Procrastination isn't just a bad habit. It's a psychological battlefield where fear, perfectionism, and self-sabotage fight to control you. But it doesn't have to be this way. With the right awareness, the right hacks, and the courage to act, even imperfectly, you can break free. And I want you to remember this: you don't have to be perfect. You just have to start. Because every great achievement in history began not with motivation, not with perfection, but with someone deciding, I'll begin now. So if you're watching this, and you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Start today. Start small. Start messy. But start. And if this series has opened your eyes, if it's given you tools to fight back against procrastination, then do this right now. Like this video, share it with someone you know who struggles with delay, and subscribe to this channel, because this is just the beginning. Together, we're going to unlock the secrets of psychology and transform the way you think, act, and live. The time to stop procrastinating is now. Your future self is waiting.